Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the December 17th meeting of the Whitehall City Council. It'll be our last official meeting of the year, unless something happens. And we're meeting tonight for the purpose to consider such matters that may come before us. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise for a moment of silence. Remain standing for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey.
Here.
Rodriguez. Elmore.
Present.
Coniston.
Present.
Cantor.
Present.
Peck.
Present.
Morrison.
Present.
President Graham.
Present.
Mr. President, at this time I move to excuse the absent member.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore to excuse the absent member. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
The absent member has been excused. Next up, we have our approval of minutes for December 3rd, 2019, agenda and regular meeting.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the December 3rd minutes.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coniston, a second by Mr. Cantor for approval of the December 3rd, 2019 minutes. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Minutes have been approved. Okay. All right, so we're going to go out of order here a little bit on our agenda. And so, Ms. Aug, please call the roll on whether each member of council was given a copy of each item of legislation listed on the agenda this evening prior to the meeting.
Bailey.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to start this evening with a few items from our first readings, and we're going to begin with Resolution 62. It's recognizing Detective John Slosser as a 2019 Whitehall Police Department Employee of the Year and awarding him a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency.
That's me.
Let me go ahead.
I would like to introduce 62. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
2019, and move for this.
Messing with your money.
Move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coniston and a second by Mr. Cantor for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 62, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 62, 2019.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Coniston, a second by Mr. Cantor for adoption of Resolution 62, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Coniston.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
All right, so we get the right one here. It's going to be the last one I grab.
Of course.
Oh, wait a minute, there might be two right there. There are. I had them right the first time.
You did.
All right, so Officer Slosser and Chief, please come forward. I'll read the resolution here, and then you can tell us why he's such a great detective. All right, this is whereas it is the desire of this council and administration to annually recognize and honor city employees who have performed their duties faithfully and in a consistent, persistent, an outstanding manner, and whereas Detective John Schlosser has been involved in or helped out in almost every major arrest that has taken place in the last year, and he is the first person who is called when a suspect needs identified. And whereas Detective Schlosser's free time, he reaches out to citizens who feel they have been wronged by police to reestablish trust, and has set up clothing drives to help victims of apartment fires. Now therefore be it ordained by the city of Whitehall, Ohio, that this council administration hereby recognizes and honors Detective John Schlosser as the 2019 Police Officer of the Year, and we express our appreciation to him for his service to our community. That Detective John Schlosser will be and hereby is authorized to receive, in addition to his usual compensation, a payment of $350 from the contingency expense account in recognition of this honor. That the city auditor is hereby authorized to draw his warrant upon the treasurer for these funds for the purpose stated in this resolution, and that the clerk of this council is hereby directed to provide certified copies of this resolution to the auditor, treasurer, human resources, and Detective John Schlosser. That this resolution is hereby declared to be an emergency measure immediately necessary for the preservation of the public health, peace, safety, and welfare, and for the further reason that this is a 2019 honor, and all employees of the year should be compensated in a timely manner for this honor. Therefore, this resolution shall go into full force and effect immediately upon its passage and approval by the mayor. So I'm going to give you this. I'll shake your hand because you deserve it. Now he's going to say a few words about you.
Well, the resolution says, pretty much says a lot of it, and I'd be here all evening if I didn't bring it, and they know back in the room, those who know John Schlosser would tell you that this is not an overstatement to say that I would be here till tomorrow morning. I just started going down the list of all the major crimes that he has helped solve, or specifically on his own solve, not just for Whitehall, but Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, Somerset, Pennsylvania, the double homicide. He assisted with some of that up in Auditor here recently. There's a lot of different things that he's done, and people know him as the go-to person. And I think just here recently, I saw a text message from, I don't remember if it was the Secret Service. Who was the Secret Service? Secret Service couldn't identify somebody. They sent him a text message, wanted to know if he could do it, and with less than 2 or 3 minutes, he sent back and said, "Try to give me a harder one next time." So this is John Schlosser, that we all know. Whitehall's a much safer place because of all the support from the department, from the city, and the people who live there, but also because of what the police department's doing to reduce crime with all his partners. And this guy right here is a major, major, major part of that. And I'm not just saying that because he's standing here. Everybody that knows him knows he is a major, major part in crime reduction. So he's invaluable. I hope nobody ever steals him from us. Congratulations.
For the Auxiliary Police Officer of the Year, Paul Lightke. Chief, you can probably say way more than I can, so come on.
I can. This is Paul's second year in a row, and almost instantly coming into our department. I think you're what, 2.5 years here now? 2 years. So 2 years, and he's had it 2 years. So that says enough by itself, right? Been here 2 years. He's had Auxiliary Officer of the Year. 2 years. And he's got a full-time, very important job that he does as well, and a very, very, very large background in law enforcement that he brings to us. So Paul has come to our department, everybody in the department, from the auxiliary officers to the staff that works there, full-time officers. If you work around him, you know his heart is in law enforcement. He has a full-time job somewhere else, and I bet you that's going 40 hours a week. I know it is. And all that extra time, he's here with us a lot, helping us. We have to clear up with his wife occasionally to make sure that we're not really causing some problems, because he's here if we need him. He's here instantly. And I want to emphasize something about that auxiliary program. These folks are putting in sometimes, he's one of them, who puts in as many hours sometimes as a lot of at least close to some of our full-timers, and these guys do this without getting paid. And these are folks who are doing this to make Whitehall safer as volunteers in a very dangerous job. So I can't say enough about what these guys do. So all congratulations and thank you. I do want to make one more comment. You know, it's having employees like that. Someone who is doing this just because it's the right thing to do, they're not getting paid for it. That to me shows to me the type of employees that we have in the city of Whitehall. Whether they're in the police department, fire department, the service department, or whatever, we've got a great bunch of people here in Whitehall that are working for the citizens of this community. So thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. All right. Now we'll move on a little bit. And we have Resolution 60, 2019. It's recognizing Robert Holman as the 2019 Firefighter of the Year and awarding him a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 60, 2019, and move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coniston, a second by Mr. Tanner for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 60, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck? Yes. Morrison?
yes,
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 60, 2019.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Coniston, a second by Mr. Tanner for adoption of Resolution 60, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck? Yes. Morrison?
yes,
All right, Resolution 60, 2019 has been adopted. Robert, if you'll come forward, and along with the chief of the fire department here. Now, I'm not going to bore everybody with the last couple sections of this. I'm just going to read what's actually pertinent to this person, as I will with the next ones we have. So, Resolution 60, 2019, recognizing Robert Hogan as the 2019 Firefighter of the Year and awarding him a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency. Whereas it is the desire of this council and administration to annually recognize and honor city employees who have performed their duties faithfully and in a consistent, persistent, and outstanding manner, and whereas Robert Homan demonstrates his performance through being a primary trainer for new hires, requesting additional training opportunities in which increases his knowledge, rewriting the orientation manual, and using his advanced skills as a fire instructor to improve shift level and visual level training. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the council of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, that the council and administration of the city of Whitehall hereby recognizes and honors Robert Holman as the 2019 Firefighter of the Year and expresses our appreciation for him, to him for his service to our community. And so the rest of it is basically, it says the same thing on every single one of them. So I'll just speed things up a little bit. Congratulations, sir. We really appreciate this.
Well, Rob's everything you want, the senior man at the firehouse. He is constantly looking for things to do and projects to do and things that will make the department better. And he's always trying to make other people better too, as well as himself. So that's why he's a very valuable employee for us for everything he does.
Okay, let's see if I can find my place here. 59, 50.
58.
All right. We have Resolution 58, 2019. It's recognizing Aaron Peer as the 2018 Service Labor Employee of the Year and awarding him a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I would like to introduce resolution number 58, 2018, and move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Heck and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 58, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Ault, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
yes,
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 58, 2019.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Heck and a second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of Resolution 58, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
yes,
Resolution 58, 2019 has been adopted. If all the parties will come forward.
Don't be shy. Come on out.
Aaron's favorite part. You only have to come up once. I got to come out here 4 times.
Yeah, you signed up for
Yeah. No, I didn't sign up for all of this. All right, this is Resolution 58, 2019, recognizing Aaron Peer as the 2019 Service Labor Employee of the Year and awarding him a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency. Whereas it is the desire of the council and administration to annually recognize and honor city employees who have performed their duties faithfully and in a consistent, persistent, and outstanding manner, and whereas Aaron Peer demonstrates his performance aligns with the city's core values. In Aaron's position as street service worker, he ensures he is always doing his best on a daily basis. His positive attitude is an example to his peers, and his attention to doing the job right is well known. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the council of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, you would think after 3 times I'd be able to get this right, that the council and administration of the Whitehall City Council, that the council and administration of the city of Whitehall hereby recognizes and honors Aaron Peer as Service Labor Employee of the Year and expresses our appreciation to him for his service to our community. Sounds good. To tell us why he's such a great employee.
So Aaron has been with us for 3 years and has quickly become one of our informal leaders. And I can tell you all the reasons why I think Aaron deserves this award, but I thought it'd be best to read some things that his coworkers said about him on why he deserves this award. Aaron is always one of our employees to volunteer to start a new project in Whitehall. One project was the Broad Street Curb and Sidewalk Replacement Program. He is one of our informal leaders that we entrust to train many other laborers in the service department. Aaron is a great example of the future of the city's service department, and he's always working to better the quality of life for our residents. That sums it up, and from his coworkers, Aaron is always the first guy to make sure that we're doing things the right way, and really goes above and beyond on a consistent basis. So, congratulations.
All right, moving on, we have Resolution 57, 2019. It's recognizing Tracy Wentz as the 2019 Administrative Employee of the Year and awarding her a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 57, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 57, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 57, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of Resolution 57, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Coniston,
Yes.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Resolution 57, 2019 has been adopted. I had to make sure I had to read the right number.
Come on up.
Yeah, come on up, everyone.
Don't be shy. We get all your emails.
That's right. All right. So I'll go through this again. Resolution 57, 2019. It's recognizing Tracy Wentz as the 2019 Administrative Employee of the Year and awarding her a one-time payment of $350 as additional compensation and declaring an emergency. Whereas it is the desire of this council and administration to annually recognize and honor city employees who have performed their duties faithfully and in a consistent, persistent, and outstanding manner. And whereas Tracy Wentz demonstrates her performance through her knowledge of human resource, efficient and kindly service to City of Whitehall employees, and always communicating in a timely manner. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Whitehall, Ohio, that the Council Administration of the City of Whitehall, Ohio, hereby recognizes and honors Tracy Wentz as Administrative Employee of the Year and expresses our appreciation to her for her service to our community. Congratulations. Now, some words from the Human Resources. Yes.
Well, I was new here in August, and Tracy took on the HR generalist role in June, and Tracy has excelled in the role. We recently launched an online open enrollment system, and Tracy's been crucial in doing that. Tracy does all of our postings. We really couldn't have the HR department function most days without Tracy, so I really appreciate all of her efforts the past few months that I've been here.
Make sure everybody caught that. These people were all new to that department. So to be awarded the Employee of the Year as a new employee in the department, I think really says something about Tracy. All right, so we're going to take a break for about 20 or 30 minutes. Okay, so we're going to get back to our regular agenda, and that brings us to our first opportunity for poll public. If anyone would like to come forward, you'll have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Paul Worther, 4483 San Jose Lane. The only reason I'm here tonight is to thank Jim Green for all his hard work, dedication to this city. I know it's your last meeting as council president. I know you'll still be around doing things, but I just want to thank you and appreciate all your help with me. When I was trying to run the city council, it didn't work. That's okay. But you taught me a lot, you made it fun, and I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and give me some, accolades or whatever? Or even money? Okay.
He's not allowed.
I have no shame. All right. So if no one else is coming forward, we'll move on to our standing committee reports, and we'll begin with Administration and Financial Management. Chairperson Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration and Financial Management did meet last Tuesday. We had quite a few items on the agenda tonight to be introduced. Our minutes are on file, and we will meet again next Tuesday. No, we won't. It'll be a while.
Yes.
Next year.
Anyhow, we will meet again sometime.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Community and Elder Advocacy Chairperson Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community and Elder Advocacy did meet on Tuesday. We have no legislation, pending legislation. Our minutes are on file, and we meet again on, I think it's in January.
We're getting closer.
January 14th.
We'll meet again in 2020.
In 2020. That's it.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Community Standards and Enforcement Chairperson Rodriguez. Unfortunately, he's unable to attend the meeting this evening. I believe he's probably getting sunburnt right now. He is on a well-deserved vacation. So I will report that that committee did meet last Tuesday. Their minutes are on file, and they shall also meet again sometime in the first month of 2020. That brings us now, we come to Economic Development, Chairperson Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Economic Development also met last Tuesday. Our minutes are on file, and we will meet again next year in the back about 6:30.
All righty, thank you, sir. That brings us to Infrastructure, Maintenance, and Services, Chairperson Hennig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Infrastructure, Maintenance, and Services met last Tuesday in the back. Our minutes are on file. We have two pieces of legislation tonight, Resolution 58 and 59. We will meet in January in the back around 6:30 on a Tuesday.
All righty, thank you.
Now the calendar.
No, I can't.
Now we have, up next, we have Public Safety, Chairperson Coniston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Safety met last week. Our minutes are on file, and we'll meet again sometime in 2020.
All right, thank you. Lastly, we have Parks and Recreation, Chairperson Cantor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parks and Recreation met last week. Our minutes are on file. They will meet again January the 7th, out here in front of the public. And my minutes are on now. I'm fine.
All righty, thank you. That concludes our standing committee reports. We'll move on to our officials' reports. Normally, we would begin with the mayor. However, she is not feeling well this evening and was unable to attend the meeting. We hope she all gets better and is able to get back in the swing of things here in the next day or so. So, first off, we'll hear from our city attorney, Mr. Michael Bivens.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. Just quickly, just to wrap up the year, the two federal cases that are currently in litigation are still in the discovery phase. I would hope to have a more detailed update, hopefully in the month of January 2020, but those cases are currently going on. There's been depositions, there's been negotiations, but they have not resolved, so we will go into 2020 with those cases. Next, the Whitehall City Attorney's Office scholarship is currently underway. Jocelyn Thomas is administrating it with Whitehall Yearling High School. That scholarship to the public is going to two seniors, a male and a female senior. The scholarship has now been increased to $500 per student. It's a speech contest where the students will recite, if they step up to do it, will recite Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, The Other America, which will be just phenomenal, and we'll hope to have that presented to the public on Martin Luther King Day. Lastly, I would like to congratulate all of the employees of the year. I know we did that, but I wanted to just go on the record to say that I'm just enthused about that. Tracy Wentz was in my office as well, so she doubled as a city attorney's staff member as well as a human resources member, which was just great. And lastly, I said it before and I'll say it again since this is the last meeting, President Graham, it's been an honor to serve with you. I look forward to continued discussions, and anytime you need a boat mate, I'm your man. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Next up, we have our city auditor, Mr. Dan Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no official report other than what you have before you. I would also like to say that it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you for your guidance and your help through the years. We've spent 10 years together. I know you spent 16 years here. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Next up, we have our Director of Public Safety, Mr. Van Grave.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I have no official report, but I would like to congratulate, of course, the employees of the year And then a special congratulations to our president right there, who's serving his last time, but being on council for 8 years and being part and seeing how he operates and the trust that I have in him and the community has in him is remarkable. So thanks for the service.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Next, we have our treasurer, Mr. Steve Quinzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no official report tonight. However, I'd like to join everyone else in extolling kudos to you for your service. I was going to ask what you were going to do with your Tuesday night, but I got a feeling that Maria's already got that one.
If it wasn't so cold out, I could go fishing, but. All right. The following officials' reports have been filed in the council office since our last meeting. We do have the auditor's expense report for November 2019, the auditor's bank report for November 2019, the auditor's statement of cash position report for November 2018. We also have the auditor's revenue report for November 2019. We did receive, along with the auditor's reports, we have several reports from the treasurer. They include the treasurer's investment report for 2019, the treasurer's activity by fund report for November 2019, and the treasurer's fund reconciliation report for November 2019. Those are all the reports we have been filed in the council office. That brings us to our communications, petitions, and claims. We did receive a notice from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for a transfer of ownership of the D2, D2X, D3, D3A, D6 liquor permits for Tumby Cafe Incorporated, DBA Belladonna Party House, 28 South Hamilton Road, Whitehall, Ohio, 43213, to the La Extravaganza Limited, DBA Belladonna, 28 South Hamilton Road, Whitehall, Ohio, 43213. Those are all the communications, petitions, and claims. At this time, we have a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing. It's a hearing to allow for public comment and recommendations on the proposed Jefferson Township Whitehall Joint Economic Development District contract to be considered for approval by the Whitehall City Council. If anyone would like to speak in favor, please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record. What? Is there anyone who's going to speak in favor of this? All right. Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor of the proposed Jefferson Township Whitehall Joint Economic Development District contract? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the Whitehall Joint Economic Development District contract? One more time, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this development contract? Well, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Are you?
I can get to say something.
Well, I was asking.
Okay, I'm not in favor or opposed of this. Economic Development Manager, Jenna Gehring. Joint Economic Development District is a partnership between the township and a municipality that allows the township to invoke the income tax that the municipality has the power to do to pay for certain things for a certain area that the Joint Economic Development District would become. So that those can include public infrastructure improvements and other public purposes such as those. But that's all I'll say on that, and thank you very much.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
There was a write-up in S&P Whitehall News. It was pretty
This is a
informative.
formality we have to get to.
Right, but if anybody out there on Facebook wants to learn more about
Okay.
it, it's out there on the internet.
All right. All right, so I will now close the public hearing, and we will move on to our third reading items for the evening, as we've already done our verification of copies. We'll begin with Ordinance 126, 2019. It's making and approving for current general fund expenses street expenses, and state highway materials. Expenses during the period from January 1, 2020 to December 31, 2020, in the total sum of $36,930,373 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 126-2019 and move for the adoption, please.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and adoption of ordinance 126-2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 126-2019 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 131-2019. It's making an appropriation for certain special revenue, internal service, and fiduciary accounts for the calendar year 2020 in the total sum of $13,872,103.16 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 131-2019 and move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and adoption of ordinance 131-2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 131-2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 132-2019. It's amending 135.161, titled Capital Improvement and Project Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 132-2019 and move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Cantor for introduction and adoption of ordinance 132-2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 132-2019 has been adopted. Our next ordinance is 133-2019. It's amending 135.18B, title Fleet Reserve and Maintenance Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 133-2019 and move to adopt.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and adoption of ordinance 133-2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 133-2019 has been adopted. Moving on, we go to ordinance 134-2019. It's amending 135.24B of the codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 134-2019 and move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and adoption of ordinance 134-2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 134-2019 has been adopted. Next up, we have ordinance 135-2019. It's amending 135.22, self-funded insurance trust fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 135-2019 and move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and adoption of ordinance 135-2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 135-2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 137-2019. It's approving and making a supplemental appropriation of $300,000 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the self-funded health insurance expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 137, 2019, and have it amended as it has been read into the record.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore to amend ordinance 137, 2019 as read. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 137, 2019 has been amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Elmore for adoption of ordinance 137, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 137, 2019 has been adopted. We now have a couple resolutions under third readings. First off, we have Resolution 52. It's approving the recommendations of the City of Whitehall Tax Incentive Review Council for tax year 2018.
Mr. President, I wish to introduce Resolution 52, 2019.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Morrison, a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and
And adoption.
and approval for Resolution 50. I was going to take care of that. Resolution 52, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Resolution 52, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have Resolution 53, 2019. It's authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with World Play LLC and its affiliates, Delaware Limited Liability and Government Payment Service Incorporated, to accept payments on the city's behalf using credit cards and debit cards and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 53, 2019, and move to adopt.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and adoption of Resolution 53, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Resolution 53, 2019 has been adopted. It was the last item of legislation we have in third readings. That brings us to our second reading ordinances and resolutions for the evening. We begin with Ordinance 140, 2019. It's amending 161.38 of the codified ordinances of the City of Whitehall, Ohio, titled Salary Schedule, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 140, 2019, and move to the suspension of all the rules, please.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on Ordinance 140, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 140, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt,
Second?
please.
Motion by Mr. Cantor, second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of Ordinance 140, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 140, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have Ordinance 148, 2019. It's amending 161.39, titled Compensation for Casual and Personal Service Contract Employees in the Parks and Recreation Department, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 148-2019 and move to the suspension of all the rules, please.
Second?
A motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on Ordinance 148, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Ordinance 148, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt, please.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of ordinance 148, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 148, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 149, 2019, amending 161.37. Is that a 1, an F, a T, a what?
That's an F.
Okay. Amending 161.37F, titled Table of Authorized Personnel and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 149-2019 and move for the suspension of all the rules, please.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and adoption of ordinance 149 that has the little teeny tiny print. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 149, 2019. Or did we just pass it?
No, it's your turn. I was like, what's happening?
When you guys pause like that, you make me think I made a mistake.
Move to adopt, please.
You're doing that on purpose.
We were just taking a break.
Yeah.
You said take a 20-minute break. I did.
Okay, second.
All right. I finally got a motion from Mr. Cantor and a second by Ms. Heck for adoption of ordinance 149, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
What you waiting on?
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 149, 2019 has been adopted. Next up, we have Resolution 56, 2019. It's authorizing the mayor to accept title to parcel numbers 090-007-55500 and 090-008-39900 located within the city of Whitehall and pay all fees associated with the transfer of properties and declaring an emergency. That resolution is being read by title only. It's the last item we have under second reading, so we'll move on to our first readings. And we'll start off with ordinance 155, 2019, amending section 161.12B1 of codified ordinances of the city of Whitehall, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 155-2019 and move for the suspension of all the rules, please.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Cantor and a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 155, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 155, 2019.
Move to adopt, please.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cantor, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of ordinance 155, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 155, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 156, 2019, approving and making an appropriation transfer in the amount of $6,835.44 from the WCS Wellness Expense Account to the Employee Medical Center Expense Account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 156, 2019, for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 156, 2019. Questions or comments? No. Hell, I don't know now. I lost my place.
No comments, sir.
Okay. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
All right, so the rules have been suspended on ordinance 156, 2019. This is all starting to run together.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for adoption of ordinance 156, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 156, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 157, 2019, approving and making a supplemental appropriation of $8,000 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the dental insurance expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 157, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey, a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 157, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 157, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of ordinance 157, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 157, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 158, 2019, approving and making a supplemental appropriation of $52,300.08 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the workers' compensation account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 158, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bailey, and second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 158, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 158, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of ordinance 158, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
All right. Ordinance 158, 2019 has been adopted. It is the end of page 4. Let's move on and see what we have on page 5. We start off with ordinance 159, 2019. It's authorizing and approving fund transfer in the amount of $100,000 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the community development fund and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 159, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 159, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 159, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Is she done?
I don't know.
I just checked.
I believe I have a motion for adoption on ordinance 159, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Peck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 159, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 160, 2019, authorizing and approving a general fund transfer in the amount of $140,000 from unappropriated monies in the general fund to the capital improvement fund, authorizing and approving a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $140,000 from the capital improvements fund to the capital improvement expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 160, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Heck for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 160, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 160, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Heck for adoption of ordinance 160, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 160, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 161, 2019, approving the creation of the infrastructure repair expense account, approving and making an appropriation of $136,937.42 from unappropriated monies in the street maintenance and repair fund to the infrastructure repair expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 161, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 161, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 161, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Heck for adoption of ordinance 161, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 161, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 162, 2019, approving and making a supplemental appropriation of $5,000 from unappropriated monies in the Law Enforcement Trust Fund to the Law Enforcement Trust Set-Aside account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 162, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for introduction and suspension of all rules on ordinance 162, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on ordinance 162, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second?
A motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Coniston for adoption of ordinance 162, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Ordinance 162, 2019 has been adopted. Next, we have Resolution 59, 2019. It's levying special assessments for property maintenance at several locations in the city of Whitehall, certifying such costs to the Franklin County Auditor to be assessed against such property and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to introduce resolution number 59, 2019, and move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Heck and a second by Mr. Morrison for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 59, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 59, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt, please.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Heck and a second by Mr. Morrison for adoption of Resolution 59, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Resolution 59, 2019 has been adopted. We'll move on to page 6.
Of 92.
Yeah. Okay, first what we have on page 6 is Resolution 61, 2019, resolving to approve then and now certificates and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 61, 2019, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for introduction and suspension of all rules on Resolution 61, 2019. Questions or comments? Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
The rules have been suspended on Resolution 61, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Elmore for adoption of Resolution 61, 2019. Ms. Aug, please call the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Elmore?
Yes.
Coniston?
Yes.
Cantor?
Yes.
Heck?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Resolution 61, 2019 has been adopted. That's all the legislation we have before us this evening. So it's time for our second opportunity for poll public. If anyone would like to come forward, you will have up to 3 minutes. All right, seeing no one, we will move on to Community Date Board. What do we have for Community Date Board this week?
We have swearing in, the council, all the swearing in on Thursday at the Whitehall Community Park, YMCA at 6:30.
I believe they're also having open
Yeah,
house.
open house, 4 to 7.
Okay, who else has something for Community Date Board?
Hanukkah's this weekend. The vest will make its return the evening of the 21st, first day the 22nd. Christmas is coming up, the 25th. Something called New Year's coming up soon too.
It's all good, huh?
It's all good.
And to think you didn't have anything to say.
No.
All right, who else has something for Community Date Board? All right, so we're going to move on to poll council. We'll begin with Mr. Bailey.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I think we have worked together now for almost 12 years, and I'm sitting here and listening to the accolades that several folks shared with you. I've decided you can't leave.
I can't what?
You
Can't wait.
Oh,
12 years is a long time, but you have served this community for 16 years, and I remember the first time you put a sign in my yard,
I
the
do
things
too.
you talked about then. You've held true to that, and I think all the folks in this community know that you have helped contribute to make this community better, and it's getting better all the time. So I want to thank you personally for your service and most importantly, our friendship.
all right, thank you. I appreciate that. Ms. Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and those that are watching on Facebook. Also, I'd like to congratulate all the recipients that were recognized today for Employee of the Year or Auxiliary Recognition. Fine job. Continue to make Whitehall proud. And to President Jim Graham, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I will continue to see you. I wish you all the best. I know you will do much more fishing than normal, and take care of your pups. Also, I want to wish Councilman Cantor a speedy recovery, and wish you well in all that you do. Looking forward to the speeches of the seniors on Martin Luther King Day, and we're wishing everybody would come out and to support them. It's really difficult to speak in front of people, so the support is greatly appreciated. We want to have them come out. And last but not least, wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holiday, and a blessed New Year. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Coniston.
Well, thank you. Everything that everybody said, I ditto. I do want to talk a little bit about this past week because we did have a breakfast with Santa that the Whitehall Community Celebration Association put on. And I just want to thank so many of the people up here that we would not have been able to do this without. Joanna literally had to go ahead and run a child to ACTs and still made it to set up and to tear down and to help us out. Wes, every event comes out to help us out. Mike Bivens, Dan Miller, without you and Chris Rodriguez, we would not have been able to get that kitchen cleaned up. I appreciate you guys so much. And the last person I want to thank is somebody that's not here, but we actually lost our photographer this past year. He decided of all things to retire. And yes, go ahead and do that, right? But there was a community member that went ahead and stepped up. And I don't think she's watching it, but I want to give a shout out to Denise Sigmund Ford for stepping up to go ahead and to, my out-of-the-box idea was, you know what, how about if we go ahead and we take these pictures like they do at the mall and print them out and hand them to people. And thank you to the schools. I walked up to this gentleman that had a lanyard on, and I said to him, we're having a problem with the username and password. Any idea if you could help us out? You know, I know nothing about IT other than turn it off, turn it back on. It didn't work. He said, let me see what I can do. Turns out he was the director of IT for the schools. Lucky he was able to go ahead and get that. We gave out 150 to 160 5x7 photos to the to family members of the community of Whitehall. And I heard such lovely things from the people that I, wasn't able to do this at the mall because, they were charging us $50 this time. I'm going to use this as a gift to give to a grandparent, or my child's going to make a frame for around it. So it was very heartwarming. I thank you, the community of Whitehall, for coming out, supporting WCCA, and we look forward to 2020. Jim Graham, I am going to so miss you. You have been my neighbor right here.
Yes.
My partner in crime. I'm sure that you guys have heard us whispering on the microphones on Facebook, especially when I get to hear and giggle over some of the words that he says. I'm so going to miss him, and I wish everybody a happy holiday and a happy new year, and we'll see you in 2020.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess that's probably the last time I'll say that to you. It's been fun working with you. I've known you
long time.
Very, very long, probably longer than a certain member of council is years of age, but that's okay. Yeah. You do, right, yeah. Actually, everybody. But you do a really good job. You're for this city, and you have tremendous input. Just wow, it's going to seem so strange with you not sitting here when I return. I just want to thank you. We sit up here, and unlike Karen, I don't whisper into your ear. I might draw your note or something, and it's not only you, but your beautiful wife. You've put up with a lot of stuff, and I wanted to thank you too. I know you have for 16 years, so.
Just put up with me.
Yeah.
That's enough right there.
That's pretty much, absolutely. And you're going to be missed up here. I've had the privilege of sitting up here with two really good presidents of council, and I feel honored that I was allowed to sit next to you for 8 years. Sometimes make you laugh, sometimes make you cringe, sometimes wanting to know what in the world am I talking about. But you always figured it out, and I wanted to thank you. And Marie, thank you again. I know it's tough. It's tough, and you've stood by him, and you've stood by our city, and I want to thank you. Also, I wanted to thank everybody that came and stayed here tonight. And the people that are watching on Facebook, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. And referring to what Councilperson, what Lori said is, I will be out on having a surgical procedure, but I shouldn't be out too long. Hopefully I'll be back by the 14th of January. And I thank you very much for your thoughts also. Our employees of the year, these folks are just phenomenal. I have the pleasure of seeing some of them work and what they do and how they go about it. It's not an easy job, and it's very much deserved that what they get, it's a shame that we can't give them a lot more and add to it. But we have since I've been on city council, and they do a great job, as do all of our staff here in the city. Mr. Bivens, I'd like to thank you for the scholarships. That's really awesome. That's a great thing that you started. Like I was saying the other night, you did quite a bit since you've been our city attorney. And it's fun working with you as well. And if I have a question, I know that I can walk into your office totally unannounced, and we can sit and we can figure it out, or actually you'll figure it out for me, and I greatly appreciate that on that. There's a lady for our breakfast with Santa. Karen didn't mention her, so I'm going to. Lona Strait. What an awesome person she is. I hope you're watching, because I greatly appreciate what you did, and we didn't get to say thank you last year, but your work is very much appreciated. We wouldn't have been able to work that kitchen without your guidance and your assistance and your smile, and I wanted to thank you very much. You're a huge help. And Dan, I wanted to thank you for our YTD on the assessments for 2019. I really didn't think you'd get that together, knowing how busy you are. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for coming. Hi girls, I love you. Daddy, I'll see you soon. I wish you the best, Jim.
Thank you.
I wish you the best. That is it.
All right, Ms. Heck.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's hard to follow. Thank you, everybody that's watching from home. Thank you for everybody that stuck around to the end. Congratulations to all of the employees of the year. Thank you, Mr. Bivens, for the scholarship. I look forward to hearing the speeches. Thank you for your service. Mr. President, I really appreciate you always taking the time to explain anything that I wasn't sure about, being new, and sometimes just explaining it without even having to ask, and feeling like that awkward newbie. So I really appreciate that. I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday, and I hope everybody has a safe and wonderful New Year's.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I only have about 20 minutes to go. Would like to thank everybody who's watching and those who showed up this evening. I appreciate the audience, and congratulations to all the employees. The city seems to always have outstanding employees, not only at the end of the year but through the year. They do a lot of good work. And Mr. Graham, I'd like to thank you for your service, and it's been a pleasure, and you've helped me a lot for the last 6 years I've been here. So thank you very much, and wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and safe holiday travel. That's it.
All right, well, thank you. Well, I wrote a few things out here, not very much at all, but a few things I wanted to say, and I knew if I didn't write it out, I'd get it all messed up. So, look, when I ran for council 16 years ago, I did so because I thought participating in my community was the right thing to do. And, you know, I thought as a member of council, I'd be making decisions that impact the daily operations of our city, kind of like, you know, running a household, only on a bigger scale. And then through a series of events, it became evident that the administration and members of this council would have the chance to set up our community to better meet the needs of our citizens, if they were willing to make some bold moves and to think out of the box. And they did. And there's no question that our community is changing. And I believe that, I really truly believe that it's all changing for the better. And you know, it's been my honor and privilege to serve alongside a group of people that have a vision for our future, and that they're willing to make the tough decisions needed to realize that vision, and for me to have played some small part in it. So I want to thank all of you for allowing me to work with you guys all these years. I do want to say one more thing. You guys got everything out of me tonight you were going to get. 1 public hearing, 4 resolutions, and 26 pieces of legislation. So y'all got your money's worth. Keep up the good work. I know you will. we're moving this city in the right direction, and I know it's going to continue to move in that way. So we have no other official business.
I have one more thing, Mr. President. I would like to thank your lovely bride for teaching you how to run a household. I'm done.
Okay.
Mr. President, in your honor, I would move to adjourn.
All right. Appreciate it. Not really necessary, but thank you so much. I believe I did get a second from someone, I think it was Mr. Cantor or Miss Elmore. Anyway, I got a second. I don't care who you put down, Miss August, please call the roll.
Bailey.
No.
Yes.
It's gonna be close.
Yes.
Cantor.
I thought maybe you gotta stay right now.
No, I don't.
Patrick.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. I hope to see you all at our next council meeting. I'll be watching on Facebook, or I'll be here. Come see these people next year. Thank you.